Hey guys, it's Vandy Ezzo by Carpet Vanguard Duck Profiles. If you guys enjoyed them, like, comment, subscribe, sorry. This time we're covering DZ set 11 for Juicy Fruity. So Juicy Fruity got introduced in the previous set, Dragon Soul Resonance, aka DZ set 10, where they focus on using plant tokens and then trying to beat down your opponent with just straight up board rush and a triple driving Vanguard. Unfortunately, Juicy Fruity does that pretty much the worst out of any deck that exists because they don't have like a lot of pressure going into it in terms of power, and while they do have an interesting gimmick to go with getting pressure, it does not work out as well as it should. So let's go ahead and get the start, shall we? Because Juicy Fruity did actually get some pretty decent support walking into the set, and while it doesn't make Juicy Fruity broken or anything, it definitely gives it support that it needed. First today we have our energy generator. It is our ride deck crest. Auto ride deck, when you ride, plus card to your crest zone. If you win second energy charge 3, continuous meditate energy, auto become rare phase and charge 3, then act once per turn, energy boss 7, draw a card. On pretty solid, you get a free 3 energy every turn. If you win second, you get an extra 3 on top of that. And once you have 7 more energy, you can blast it out to draw. Unfortunately, you would never use that energy boss 7 skill to draw most of the time because we do already have other energy blasters that exist in the deck. On the bright side, though, all the cards that do cost energy use the energy to draw. It's a good card to have for resource. And then we have our starter in Juicy Fruity Mandarinda. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 6k base, auto roll 5 second draw card, standard starter, and does not free draw if you go second. You do actually have to make this your starter of the ride deck because the grade 1 requires this grade 0 and the grade 2 requires the grade 1. And well, you want to be able to make as many plant tokens as possible to help bully down your opponent because the grade 3 is one of the only cards that can actually make plant tokens in this deck. So one of Mandarinda in the ride deck. As for our triggers, we have our over trigger and fantastic Fernial Katrina. Grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power, over trigger in your deck. Reveal it as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose numbers, get a plus 1 million for the turn. And if you reveal it during your drag check, activate the adjust fight, which you get the player during this fight, you get during your turn. All your rear guards get 10,000 power. Also, that's a pretty good skill because your board will always have 5 rear guards. Like, that's the one benefit to this deck. You will always have a full board. So being able to make all of your rear guards, albeit mostly being plant tokens, 15k bases, is good because that means your columns are hitting for 30k without the additional skill of Shirlina or any trigger effects or persona rides for that matter, which honestly is pretty good. You can make this walnut to like go for a very specific lethal turn, or it's Forio just to have crit pressure on the Vanguard, but I think Katrina just works best for this deck because again, you're constantly having board pressure, so might as well try to increase your numbers as much as possible, especially if you sack her early because then your opponent is going to be really screwed really quickly. And then we have our normal triggers, 3 copies of Snowskip Palavi, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 4k power, contains guard circle, if your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 guard at 5,000 to her shield, so she's a 20k shield and she's a front trigger, so she adds 10k to the front row every single time you sack her, whether offensively or defensively. That is really helpful to have, especially because again, this deck lacks like power, so being able to increase power even more is nice to have. Then we have a total of 8 crit because of course it's a multi-attack deck and we're going to run critical triggers to add additional pressure because again, the deck already lacks that, so might as well at least try to give it some form of that. So we have 4 Cheerful Sunshine Wallets, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. It's a vanilla crit, make this any crit you want. And the other one is Gluttonora, grade 0 boost, 15k shield, 5k power. Again, it's a vanilla crit. You don't need Edwidge, the crit that can send itself to soul, because the deck doesn't really run into a soul problem unless you don't draw any of your soul chargers and you are soul blasting out the wazoo with a bunch of random cards. But otherwise, you are good just to have a total of 8 vanilla crit just for that pressure to have on Vanguard attack and rear guard attacks. And then 4 heal and talkative hour Tonmus, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Standard heal, it's just a vanilla heal. You can make this any heal you want. You can even make it the counter heals, but I prefer to use a vanilla heal in general because I like the 15k shield that's consistent rather than the fluctuating 10 to 25k shield of the counter heals, because if your opponent is smart enough, they can play around the counter heals and that can cause you to lose a game. Next up, we have our grade 1, starting off with 3 copies of Cooling Heart Eureka. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto rear guard once per turn when your other unit is placed in the same column as her. If your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 guard at 5,000 to her power, so she's a 13k base the turn something's placed in front of her as long as your opponent's at grade 3. And then auto rear guard, at that she boosted a rear guard specifically. So box 1, choose over boost your rear guards and bounce it back to your hand. So the whole point of Shirlina, weirdly enough, is to make plant tokens and then give one of them the ability that when it's bounced back to your hand at the end of the turn, you get to draw a card. Don't know why it does that, considering no one else in their deck actually bounces stuff, but cool. Eureka being able to bounce the plant token and then you get a draw at the end of the turn for is pretty nice. Not to mention the fact that, again, she's a 13k booster, so she's at least getting some numbers, even though after a certain point, the plant tokens are actually better boosted than Eureka. But at least in the early game, she's a great card to aggro your opponent down with. And if she's too expensive for you, because Eureka is a really good generic card, Juicy Fruity did get a card that came out with them where at the end of the battle that it boosted a token unit, you can shove it to soul to bounce the boosted unit to your hand. So for the record, if Eureka is too expensive, that is the alternative, but Eureka is just the better version of that grade 1. So 3 copies of Eureka. Then we have 4 copies of our amazing countercharger, because that is actually helpful in this deck that does have possible CB problems. Breathtaking Production Nabidi. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto discard from your hand during turn, you may put her to soul, so another way to soul charge, and then auto rear guard that she boosts a token unit specifically, shove her to soul, countercharge 1. Okay, 9 times out of 10 she's going to boost a token unit anyways, just don't put her behind the Vanguard circle and you're good to go. She gets you soul in 2 different ways, whether she's ditched for ride deck / literally anything else as long as it was during your turn, or she just goes so at the end about that she boosted to get you a CB back, which can be really helpful for, you know, Shirlina's skill or Dainty's skill or even Persea over here just to get extra hand cards. All around, Nabidi is an amazing grade 1 for both resource wise, where we're just talking pure soul, or we're also talking CB as well, so very solid 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of our new grade 1, Ephemeral Verse Latour. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base. Again, love the pink hair. I don't know why I love pink hair on like Lyrical Monasterio cards. Anyways, auto when placed on rear guard circle. If your rear guard circle has a token unit, soul charge 1, and then if your vanguard is a Juicy Fruity, choose your tokens, give it 5k for the turn. So the other thing of Juicy Fruity is you typically want to call over your token units to specify how Latour works. She does not have to be placed on top of a token unit. There's have to be a token somewhere on your rear guard circle. So being able to get a free soul charge regardless of what grade either player's at is awesome. And then as long as your vanguard is Juicy Fruity, which again is either grade because your entire ride line is Juicy Fruity line, one of your tokens gets 5k power, making it a 10k, so you can kind of swing with that unit and bully down your opponent. The deck wants to try to early aggro. It doesn't do it well, and it gets shut down very easily if your opponent pulls a defensive trigger, but at least the deck is trying to like add a little bit of aggro to it. If only our ride line was like the rower line where one of them could pull 2 tokens instead of just 1 each, but a Latour, still a good grade 1. Gets you soul for free, powers up your tokens, and can literally do it with no restrictions whatsoever, so 4 of Latour. Then we have 4 copies of our PG and Best Served Hot Warmia. Grade 1 boost, 0 soul, 6k base, contains Scepter, you may have to 4 Sentinels in deck. Auto is put on guard circle, choose one views, it cannot hit in the battle for hand, so more cards in it. Choose a card from your hand and discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it. Basically means if there's only 1 or cards in your hand, place it on guard circle. You don't have to discard one's great, because that means you'd be super aggressive in the early game. Basically spam all of your grade 1s in combination with the plant tokens that Lenlin and Nana and Banana give you, and then your opponent does eventually counterattack you, throw down Warmia, give them the middle finger, good to go. All around, very solid PG to have. I really like this PG because I just like the winter kind of Christmassy theme of it. I am very disappointed that the PG that we got for Lyrical Monasterio's upcoming booster set does not have a Christmas theme to it, but I'm fine with it because Warmia is one of my favorite PGs, which means I get to run Warmia in all my Christmas decks. So for Warmia, very solid PG to have. You can make this any of the Lyrical Monasterio PGs because they all have the same skills Warmia. I chose to make it Warmia because, like I just said, she's my favorite of the PGs. And then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, one of in the red deck, none in the main deck, of Juicy Fruity App Lenlen. Grade 1 boost, 5k shield, 8k base, auto in place by writing from Juicy Fruity Mandarinda. Reveal a grade 3 card Juicy Fruity card from the ride deck and call plant token to rear guard circle. Plant tokens are the grade 0s with 5k power, boost, and 1 critical. So cool. Placed by writing from the grade 0, get a plant token. So if you're going first, it doesn't do much for you, but if you're going second, I mean, you got a rear guard, maybe combo with literally any of your grade 1s and then bully down your opponent. That's the benefit of this card. It's a free rear guard, but that's as far as I get with you. It's not a bad grade 1, don't get me wrong, but the fact that the grade 2 is literally the exact same skill verbatim outside of who it has to ride from is kind of annoying, because I really wish the grade 2 had the ability to make 2 plant tokens like the Roro line, but I digress from my point. Either way, App Lenlen, just a good grade 1 all around for at least getting you an extra rear guard for free, so one of in the ride deck. On to our grade 2s, 4 copies of Dazzle Bubble Paradise Persea. Grade 2 and step 5k shield, 10k base, auto placed on guard circle from hand or discard from the hand when riding from the ride deck specifically. CB1 energy boss 3 draw card. Cool. We have different cards that cost energy, mainly Persea and our Saroni over here, and also our main grade 3 cost CB along with Dainty and Persea herself. But if you ever find an opening with either of those 2 resources that you can afford to spend, you can use the draw card, which is really great because it helps dig for extra cards throughout the deck, and you can use it with either CB or EB, which again, you get 3 EB every single turn, and your CB can be refunded by Nabidi over here, so it's not like you're ever being in a situation where you don't have one of the costs available. And then auto place on rear guard circle. If you persona of this turn, CB1 or energy blast 3, choose one of your units until end of turn, it gets 5,000 power, and if you chose a rear guard specifically, return that unit from your rear guard circle to your hand at the end of the turn. You could also pick herself, mind you, because you could just choose to give her the 5k and then bounce her back to hand at the end of the turn, or you give it to the Vanguard, which in that case the Vanguard won't be bounced, or you give it to your plant token who's already going to be bounced at the end of the turn and just give it more power, or give it to someone else that is a normie on your board that isn't a token, which is a rare occurrence, like maybe Latour. He either use next turn, just have an extra 5k shoot in hand for the following turn. Either way, Persea, really great grade 2. Defensively and consistently, she can be used when discarded or put on guard circle to help draw cards if she's being used defensively. She She can help you top deck into really good defensive cards, like maybe a trigger that you need for guarding, or maybe your blow ball for extra 10k power, or maybe even a PG to block a really big attack. And for consistency wise, when she's discarded for ride deck, I mean, she could draw you pretty much anything you need in that moment, especially going second in the early game where maybe you need like an extra grade 1 or dainty to bully down your opponent. And once you get to Persona Ride turns, well, she turns any rear guard on your board, extra 5k at the end of the turn, bounce it, and she could give it to herself to the point where you can use her offensively one turn and then immediately use her defensively the next turn. All around Persea, really great grade 2 to have in the deck. She is what helps this deck not die immediately. 4 of. Then we have 4 copies of Blow Ball Message Prone. Grade 2 instant 5k shield, 10k base, auto rear guard or the hand. At the beginning of the guard step of the battle, your grade 3 guard Vanguard of Juicy Fruity's card name is attacked. By putting this card into your soul, choose and reuse being attacked and it gets 10,000 power from the battle. Must be done before calling Guardians and intercepting. So say for example, your opponent attacks and you immediately intercept with Persea, well automatically you can use Pronate. But obviously use Pronate first. Good thing is she can be from rear guard or hand, so she can bypass your opponent's like targeting units, multiple units in an attack like Vermilion for example. And not to mention that she gets you soul as well, so therefore you can use your soul blast cost on Dainty / Tarina over here, or literally any other card that exists that has a soul blast, such as Eureka, or any generic card you want to run in place of any of the expensive cards. All around Pronate, it's a great grade 2. Unfortunately, you're only going to use her once per battle because that's how the timing curve of her skill works. But being able just to have a 10k extra power to the Vanguard while also getting you a free soul out of it, not a bad grade 2 at all. Good 4 for me. Then we have 4 copies of Grazing Charm Dainty. Great turns at 5k shield, 10k base. Honestly, this deck's best support card, and of course it's generic, which means it works with Artisaria as well. Auto place a Vanguard Circle that has a token unit on it. By counterblasting 1 or soul blasting 2 cards, you draw a card, and if your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard, she gets 5,000 power. So simply put, you can probably this off on turn 2, which is important because, you know, you're not a banana, get you a plant token. You probably already got a plant token from App Lundland. So you call this thing on top of plant token, you either CB or soul blast, and you get a draw. But then once you hit grade 3 and you call it back, you get an extra 5,000 power. More importantly, auto when a token is placed on top of her by your Vanguard's ability specifically, put this card to your hand. So when your Vanguard calls a plant token and you place on top of Dainty, Dainty can go back to your hand. A play I've done one time is I called a Dainty on top of a plant token that was made on the previous turn, use Dainty's skill to draw at 5,000 power, then use the Vanguard skill, make a plant token, call on top of Dainty, Dainty goes back to my hand, and then I recall Dainty on top of that plant token to end up getting more numbers and draw on it. Really great grade 2. She combos really well with this deck. She can get you a lot of hand cards really easily. She's very cheap in terms of her cost, and again, she also has alternate costs just like Persea, which means if one cost is taken up by every other card in your deck, you can use the other cost instead, especially because Soul is not a resource that we struggle with since only one other unit uses its skill. Rather than not, you're only going to use Eureka once, maybe after the first 2 turns, and then after that you're good. Being able to bounce yourself back to hand is great, but also have alternate resources for her cost is pretty good. So 4 of Dainty, just a good grade 2 all around for getting extra hand cards, getting numbers, and just being a consistent grade 2. And then we have 4 copies of our newest card, Petite Cute Serone, grade 2 in SFI shield, 10k base. Auto rear guard when she attacks a grade 3 guarded unit. If your Vanguard's a Juicy Fruity, that's a grade 3 guarded, she gets 5,000 power for the battle. So 15k swing for free, not bad since Juicy Fruity only ends up powering up the token unit specifically, so it's at least a 15k swing on its own. And then auto and retire from rear guard circle by a token unit. If you have a grade 3 guarded Vanguard Juicy Fruity in the card name, put this card into your soul to draw a card, and the energy blast 3, and that token uses 10,000 power for the turn. If they ever do make more Lyrical Monasterio cards that can make plant tokens that aren't specifically the Vanguard, then there you go, she would still proc off, unlike Dainty, who has to be specifically have the token be called by the Vanguard ability. But on the bright side, whether it's by the Vanguard ability or different ability, as long as the token was placed on top of her, you'll get a free draw, and she will go to soul for you, so more soul you can spend on Dainty, the Vanguard, and Eureka / any generic cards you want here. But even more than that, if you end up having 3 energy to spare, which most likely you will, the token unit gets an extra 10,000 power, meaning the token unit is going to be a 15k base on its own, probably an extra 5k base thanks to Chirolina, so 20k, and any other power up you have during that moment. All around Serone, very good grade 2. She at least hits for an okayish number to where she can actually hit a grade 3 guarded Vanguard without getting the power benefits of any Juicy Fruity card because all they do is focus on plant tokens. But it also allows you to end up, while you get your multi-attack slash, while you make more plant tokens on your rear guard circle, she strengthens your plant tokens, she gets you soul cards, and she gets you hand cards, all for very cheap cost. So very solid 4 for me. Then we have our last grade 2 in the deck, one of them in the Radic and in the main deck of Juicy Fruity, not a banana. Grade 2 is 5k shield, 10k base, auto replaced by riding from Juicy Fruity App Lundland, aka the grade 1. Reveal a grade 3 card Juicy Fruity card from Red deck called Plant Token Rear Guard Circle. Again, wish this thing called 2 plant tokens, but it's fine when it only calls 1. It just makes it a little bit harder to aggro your opponent, but you can basically call your 2 plant tokens to a line that you got from App Lundland, and then maybe call Dainty on top of one of them, just combo your opponent down. So 1 of Nana Banana in the right deck. As for our last card in the deck, 3 of the main deck, 1 in the right deck of Juicy Fruity Tarina. Tarina. Grade 3 10% 13k base, can change Vanguard Circle. All your plant tokens get 5,000 power, and they also get 5,000 power for each copy of this in your soul, active with pairs turns. So your plant tokens, the second you hit grade 3, are all 10k bases. Cool. Not bad. And then once you get more copies of her in soul via persona writing and stuff like that, they get additional 5k. There was actually one time where I did get all 3 copies of Tarina in soul, which means that all my plant tokens were base power of 25k, which was very fun for numbers. And then Act Vanguard, once per turn, soul boss 1, call up to 2 plant tokens to rearguard circle. And your opponent's Vanguards are grade 3 or greater, and you have 4 more rearguard. She gets specifically triple drive for the turn. I want to be clear, there are plenty of decks that exist now that get triple drive very easily, or just get them inherently, ahem, non-clear, while regardless of what grade your opponent's Vanguard is at. Why this specifically requires your opponent to be a grade 3 or greater is beyond me, because yeah, soul bossing want to get 2 plant tokens is good. Mind you, Roa, the card that this basically is a worse version of, got you 3 plant tokens for 1 soul blast, but granted, he didn't get triple drive. This one could get triple drive, but they could just made it if you have 4 more rear guards, because you're often going to have that anyways, but I digress from my point. And then auto Vanguards return with this new attacks anything, card boss 1, call plant token to rear guard circle, so it does benefit from Serone's battle phase skill, or Dainty's battle phase skill, where you can proc them off during battle phase. And then until end of turn, that called plant token gets continues rear guard circle. This unit gets all the trigger effects your Vanguard gets, so that includes power and critical. So if you pull a critical trigger and give all effects to Tarina, that token also gets it. And then auto and return to your hand from the rear guard circle, draw a card. It gets you extra hand cards. Again, I don't know why it specifies the return to hand skill, because that's not something else the rest of the deck does. Literally, even like the one generic card that came out with Juicy Fruity, it's generic. It can boost any token unit and bounce it back to hand. So I don't know why that skill exists, but cool. Being able to get a hand card at the end of the turn is good. And then again, being able to power up your tokens while also powering up Tarina is also really helpful. And she makes tokens for very cheap cost, and she even increases their power too. So it's like Arboros, but in Lyrical Monasterio. I would have preferred if this card also had the ability to give those cards intercept and maybe extra shield, because one of the problems I do face with playing Juicy Fruity in general is having lack of guard power. So I think that would have been really cool if they fully committed to the idea of Arboros copy, where they give those cards extra shield value, maybe intercept as well. But hey, still a good grade 3 nonetheless. She gets you plant tokens for a relatively cheap cost. She gets triple drive for, albeit an unnecessarily stupid restriction compared to whatever other cards get triple drive, but also in the sense that she at least powers up your plant tokens really easily and really efficiently. Her skills are okay. They don't excel in any way, shape, or form outside of the 5k skill, but there are at least decent skills. And then, of course, we have her plant tokens. You only need 5 plant tokens because, well, you're going to try to make your entire board plant tokens. So you don't need more than the 5 that you're making. And then that's it for this video. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is nice to play. I wish that it had a little bit more, because like I said throughout this video, it struggles in a lot of areas. It struggles with defensive ability. In the early game, it can rush, but it doesn't feel like a good rush. It feels on the same level of Granfia's early game rush, if you catch my drift. This card has a random bounce skill attached to it. Its support cards are good. The main grade 3 is fine, but you're trying to fight your opponent with what is basically a bunch of vanillas on board, and that's kind of the game plan. If that's going to be the case, you have to find a way to make those vanillas more powerful and more than just give them 5k per copy in soul, because even if you build a turbo version of it, unless you get really lucky, those plant tokens aren't going to consistently hit more than 10k on the first grade 3 turn, and even then that's kind of gambling on it. I wish this gave it shield value. I wish they gave them intercept, or I wish the triple drive wasn't restricted to your opponent being a grade 3. There's so much this deck could do. If randomly this deck gets a really good line of support in this Lyrical Monasterio booster, which I know they won't, but if they did, then this deck would be really good. And who knows, when they ever do give Juicy Fruity an upgrade, because they probably will at some point, in terms of the main grade 3, hopefully it does the notes that I just said and fixes the problem, because when you're building a deck around a bunch of vanillas, at some point you're going to have to make a really broken skill, or inherently a lot stronger than what everything else is. Either way though, that's it for this one. I hope all of you guys enjoy. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, join the Discord, follow Twitch, and don't forget to send up your Vanguards.